Welcome to the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Main, awesome wife and dog mom for life. I'm a sex therapist turned sex coach, and I run a successful business selling relationship enhancement products. I absolutely love talking about all things sex. So you can expect this podcast to explore all things related to women's sexual health because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you discover and embrace what brings you pleasure so that you can own your sexual self. If that sounds good to you, then keep listening and let's fucking do this. Welcome back to the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast. I am here with another guest this week, which I need to give a trigger warning before today's episode. This is not something that is found to be easy for a lot of people to talk about, yet it is something that I feel strongly needs to be spoken about, and that's what this podcast is all about, right? I'm here to help you explore all things involving sexuality, involving your sexual health, your sexual wellness, and in that can sometimes come those things that provide us with shame and guilt and might have some stigmas around them that are reasons why we want to keep them closed up and not share with people. And things that often, if we don't talk about, can become much worse and really boil up and maybe lead to things like suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, so many different things. So today I am super excited to announce that I have on a very, very special guest with us. I have on with us today Courtney Brame, who is the founder and executive director of Something Positive for Positive People. In 2012, Courtney was diagnosed with HSV-2, which is primarily genital herpes. I don't want to speak on his behalf because that's what he's here for today, is to tell us exactly what his story is around herpes. And being that he is someone that has experienced this firsthand, I think that he is the perfect person to be on our show today to be able to tell us about the struggles that he faced and very much so tell you the reason why he started this podcast and nonprofit organization, which again is called Something Positive for Positive People. Because when we go through something like this, we all need that positive space. We need that place where we can go to find resources, to find help, to find support in working through these difficult situations. And I've had the honor of listening to Courtney being interviewed on another friend's podcast, my friend Jordan Jones, whose podcast is Vaginas, Vulvas, and Vibrators. And Courtney brings such a unique outlook to this topic. I promise you that you're going to have some laughs through this episode, but you're also going to get some super valuable information that is needed. And that might be needed for yourself or somebody that comes to you and discloses to you that they have herpes. So without further ado, I'm happy to introduce Courtney to the podcast. All right, welcome, Courtney. Thank you so much for being on the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me and being patient while I ate right before we started the podcast. I got home. I was like, I have plenty of time to cook dinner and eat it, and I'm going to be well prepared for the podcast. And then we ended up having to wait, 15 minutes. So thank you for your patience.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited. Like I said, I'm super honored to have you on today. And I'm so glad that social media, as we were chatting before this, I'm so glad that social media has allowed our paths to cross and be able to connect with each other. And as I was saying, this topic, and when I recorded your intro, I kind of gave a trigger warning because, as I said, this is something that I don't get asked often about, but I know that it's out there and I know that it's something that people need to hear. And hearing you being interviewed on another episode, I'm so fucking pumped for you to be on because you have so much character. You talk freely about this. You are super educated and have a shit ton of resources to share with people. So without me rambling on, tell us your story. Where did this all start for you?
I'm glad you said fucking because I was like, can I curse? I didn't ask. I didn't want to bring that up. So thanks for opening the door with that. My story. So since you already did the intro, I'll just leave all of the background stuff out of there. I've had genital HSV2, which is herpes simplex virus, type 2, which is primarily, it presents genital herpes outbreaks primarily. That doesn't mean that you can't get HSV2 orally. You can also get it orally. And it goes the same way for HSV1. So these are the two primarily associated with sexual transmitted infections. I was diagnosed in, I guess it was 2013, 14. And I was living with my grandmother at the time. I had just finished college and gotten a job. I was done playing sports. And I had made the decision that I was going to like stop working out completely. I thought to myself, yes, I don't have to get up and go run outside in the cold. I don't have to go and lift weights. I didn't have to do any of that. And the reason I share this is because, and just how often I share my story, there's often little details that come back up that I think changes like the timeline of when I might have been exposed to herpes. And so I'm done with school. I'm done working out and all of that. And not too long after finishing, after getting my job, and I've gotten into this very lazy mode, let's call it that. And then living with my grandmother. My grandma fucking cooked like at least twice a week. Mm-hmm. And the other several days, like we'd go out to eat, or I'd be out with friends and we'd go drink and eat and things like that. So I was not eating anywhere near as well as I was in college. And that says a lot because in college I wasn't eating well for shit. So I wake up one morning and I've got fever symptoms, flu-like symptoms. I've got a fever, I'm cold, but I'm hot, and I'm sweating a little bit, but I still want to be under the covers. And I had to pee, so I got up and I walked to the restroom and I pulled down my pants and I looked down as I'm taking a piss and I'm like, what the fuck? And I looked down and I used to say that it looked like the surface, what the surface of a meteor or an asteroid looks like, mm-hmm. is what it felt like. But I just spoke to somebody who gave me a much better analogy, and it looked more like cauliflower. So I was like, oh my God. So on the upper right corner shaft of my penis, underneath the head of it, there was just like this perhaps nickel to a quarter shape of a circle that had a cluster of like mini bumps on it. So my grandmother's a nurse. She screams, "Court, what's wrong?" And I open the door a little bit and I go, "We need to go to the doctor right now." So my mom just happened to have been over and she drove me to an urgent care facility where they just told me flat out, hey, this is herpes, like we'll swab it. They treated me for chlamydia and gonorrhea as well, just in case I had been recently exposed to those. The doctor just sent me on my way with a pamphlet that told me how many people had herpes, which was fucking useless to me because realistically, who's going to tell me, or how am I going to find these people, right? So I get home and I need to make a few phone calls, or text messages or Facebook messages. So I messaged the most recent 2-3 partners that I had. And I just asked them, like, hey, do you have herpes? And everyone said no. So that kind of left me with this, oh, I don't know what to do now type thing. I didn't have anyone to point the finger at. So I just had to deal with that on my own. When I was diagnosed, the first thoughts that I had more than anything were, fuck, who else could I give this to? Mm. Because to me, that was embarrassing. It's like being the guy who gave somebody herpes. I didn't want that reputation. I didn't want anyone to look at me that way. I didn't want to be seen as that. And that's really where my head was. So when everyone told me that they didn't have it, I just let out this big ass sigh of relief. But then it was like, now what? Mm-hmm. Right? So that was the initial diagnosis, that point. Do you have any questions? Because I'll this whole episode will be Courtney's diagnosis to today, how we met.
Yeah. So my first question that popped in my head. So you said that you woke up that morning, you went to go pee, and you noticed that that cauliflower looking thing being on your penis. So did this? There was nothing the night before, nothing leading up to that day that led you to believe that something might be wrong?
No, I couldn't even tell you like how recently it was that I had sex, because at that point in time, I think I had just ended what was a long distance relationship. So it wasn't like I recently had sex and I could just like pinpoint it. So this might have been something that was present for a long period of time before it presented any symptoms. And given that all of my recent partners had told me that they don't have herpes, like that's what I had to go with. You know, if someone was lying, I would never know. But to this day, I do not know where it came from.
And that leads me to want to ask you, because as I said, this is something that I want this to be as informational as possible. So you not having any symptoms leading up until this morning when you go pee, that's something that people need to know, that with STIs in general, it's not something that happens and then boom, the next day you're going to see, you know, something is occurring. These are things that can evolve over time, and quite often most STIs, they don't even show signs of any symptom signs right away. Is that what you experience in the people that you're talking with?
Yeah, so prior to my actual first symptoms, I had a scare where I was in college probably 2 years before, and I went to our campus clinic and showed them my penis because I just had this, it was like a rash, so to speak, kind of like chafing. It was like an intense chafing. So at this point in time, I hadn't had sex for a while. So I go in there and I'm like, hey, what's this? And the nurse does my STI screening. She puts a Q-tip, this long Q-tip in my dick hole and like spins it around. And I'm like, I'm never getting tested for STDs again. This was, I mean, and I say STIs now, but at that point in time, I was saying STDs. So after going through this, this testing procedure, she looks at me and she just goes, it just looks like you've been really busy. Mind you, I've not been having sex, so this was just straight from masturbating. Like, I was masturbating so fucking much that apparently I gave my dick hand burn or callus burn or something, and I thought that there was something wrong. So, like, I'd rather err on the side of caution and be like, oh, well, maybe I just need to let it heal or leave it alone for a little while. So I walk out of there. I didn't feel good about that. Like, I didn't feel good about her telling me that it just looked like I'd been masturbating too much. So the next time that I went back home, because I was in a college town, so I lived 2 hours away, so I could just drive back home. I scheduled an appointment to get a herpes test done, because that was the thing I was worried about. Like, I wasn't concerned about any other STIs, and this was the only one that presented like sores on your penis. So I was like, oh, this might be what this is. So I go in, I get tested, and my test comes back negative. Here's the thing though, when you get a herpes test, there's a key on the test results, and the key shows what your antibody count is. I forget the name of the test that I had, but I know that if I tested above a certain number, then I was positive. If I test below a certain number, then I'm negative. But however, there was a presence of antibodies when I got this test done. So it just wasn't enough to have tested positive or to have had an outbreak, I guess. So I look at this and, you know, I didn't really think anything of it because I was just happy to figure out that it was negative. It was until I tested positive and then like started doing my research that I was like, what if I just got exposed at that point in time, and then over time I built up more antibodies for it? Or what if I was repeatedly exposed to it, and that's what grew my antibody count over to the side of being able to have an outbreak and testing positive, right? So, I mean, I don't have an answer to these questions at all yet, but this was just kind of where my thought process was. And because I was so physically active all the time, we had practice, games, off-season stuff, and then we had our meals for the most part like planned out for us. I wasn't having outbreaks, so it took time passing for me to create the ideal situation for the virus to come out and play, essentially. So because I have genital herpes, generally with HSV1, HSV2, based on the area of outbreaks, like the viruses just have a preference for where they present themselves. So genital herpes typically lives at the base of the spine. So at the bottom of the spine, this is where genital outbreaks may occur because the virus actually lives in the nerves and then presents itself on the surface of the skin. And then if I were to have had oral herpes, the way that it would present would be around my mouth, and the virus would live in the nerves at the top of the spine. I forget the name. I'm trying to remember what it was back there, but that's where the virus would live, in those nerves. And when we give it an ideal situation, that's when it likes to come out and play.
So I want to ask, is that when you were in the beginning describing your story, that's why you were saying, you were mentioning the weather and your eating habits and your physical habits, because does that, in somebody that's diagnosed with this, are those things that can help them control the frequency of outbreaks?
So one of the first things that I remember searching, I know better than to just search for a word of any kind on search engines, especially Google. So I searched a phrase. It was how to manage herpes outbreaks, because that was one of the things that I learned. I was like, oh, you can have herpes, but you also get outbreaks. So you can have herpes and everything's fine, but if you have an outbreak, that's when it's all to shit, right? So I Googled like how to manage it or something like that. And what came up for me immediately was nutrition, movement, and stress management. So I got my ass back in the gym real quick. I got a personal trainer, and he also happened to have taught me how to eat. I thought that I was eating healthy because I wasn't eating meat for a while, but turns out you can't eat a whole fucking box of processed mashed potatoes and macaroni and cheese and call that like a meal just because it doesn't have meat in it. I started getting like Popeye's grilled chicken, and I had to write down everything I ate. He gave me so much shit about it. I was like, but I got the grilled chicken. He was like, it's still fucking KFC, Courtney. I was like, all right, my bad. So he got me started on the path of like understanding what I'm putting in my body. He got me into like the routine of working out again. And once that foundation was set for me, I had the working out, and then I had the eating. One of my best friends, he had also been encouraging me to come to a yoga class. He's very into like Tai Chi and alternative forms of working out. Like he'd come to the gym and lift with me to like get big and be strong, but he would also do these other things that were more so for the mental aspect. So eventually, like after my diagnosis, I was like, you know what, I'll try this thing, especially for stress management. But I mostly went in because we needed to stretch after working out. So I go in there, and I actually liked it. I liked yoga a lot. Like now, 8 years later, well, once I get my certification in the mail, by the time this episode comes out, I'll be a certified yoga teacher.
Nice.
I just have to finish a couple of requirements, but
awesome.
These were the 3 things that I did. I started exercising again. I got back into yoga, and I became more mindful of what I was eating. Now, many people will promote this idea that arginine, whichever one of those ways you want to say it, it's a protein, I believe, that's found, an amino acid or protein that's found in like peanut butter and dark chocolate or some kind of chocolate, I forget. But they say that these kinds of things trigger outbreaks. I eat peanut butter in my oatmeal. I eat peanut butter jelly sandwiches. I mean, to be honest, I don't even like peanut butter, but it's like one of the healthier options for me to eat certain things. I'll fuck up some Reese's peanut butter cups. That's probably the extent that it goes. But these things don't trigger outbreaks for me. And I tell everybody, like, don't just jump into this shit and get on medication and cut things out of your diet and start introducing new shit into your diet, or taking the daily suppressive medication if you haven't really given your body time to see what it needs and what it can do, because every body is different. In my experience, one of my friends that I spoke to after he was diagnosed, he jumped right on medication. I was like, bro, what are you doing? Like, you just found out you have it, and now you're on a medication. His concern was keeping from spreading it to other people. And even though he started taking the medication, because he started taking it so soon, like, I'm not a medical professional, but I can make a general assumption here. He started taking the medication, and then he got more frequent outbreaks. And when he stopped taking the medication, he stopped having outbreaks. I don't know what the correlation is there, but like I said, every body is different. And so what works for Courtney may not work for the next person or the person after that. But I think that it's very important for everybody to make and take the time to see how their own body is going to react to this. Now, if you're someone who, you got your first outbreak, like me, I got my first outbreak, they gave me this medication. They said, take 2 of these pills twice a day for 3 days, 6 hours apart. I did that, and my penis looks like it always did. It looks like nothing ever happened. Considering what it looked like during the outbreak, and for on the 4th day, for it to have just been completely healed, like that was, it was a miracle. Because I genuinely thought that was what my penis was going to always look like. I thought that I was going to always have this here. I thought, I wouldn't even want to put a condom over this and have sex. That was just what my thought process was at that point in time. So, those 2 things. Make sure you manage your stress, whether that be seeing a therapist, making time for friends, self-care, reading books. These are all the kinds of things that I've done. Working out, for me, it just looks like lifting weights. And then getting the movement of like yoga. But to me, that's also something that's for my mind as well. And then eating well. So I would say these are the things that people need to look into. And of course, like giving your body a chance to see how it's going to react or how it's going to handle this. Because the thing about the antivirals, if you go on them every day, it doesn't eliminate the risk. Nothing just completely eliminates the risk of transmitting the virus onto someone. So if you're single and you're dating and you're not having outbreaks at all, why would you change that at the expense of lowering the risk of passing it on to somebody else? And I'm speaking more freely here about this now because like I've heard more situations where people are stressing themselves out because they have to go day to day of this constant reminder that they have the fucking virus because they have to take this pill every day. So that alone is enough to be a stress trigger as a reminder. Like for me, if I didn't wake up every day and have messages from people about herpes, I wouldn't even think about this shit. And to be honest, like I only have to be honest, I don't even think that like I've been at a point where depending on how I meet people, of course, because when I tell people what I do, that's like a disclosure in itself.
Yeah.
So disclosing for me has never, well, it was at one point for the first half of my diagnosis life cycle, it was an issue. For the last year, it's not been, but I would say like 3 years, for the last 3 out of the last 4 years, it was tricky for me because I tried to avoid it. Like I would avoid trying to tell people what I did. I'd just be like, oh yeah, I'm a personal trainer. And then somebody'd be like, oh, what else? Tell them what else you do, Courtney. I'm like, dude, shut up.
Like, thanks.
Talk about this right now. Say the plates. So,
all right. So you find out you have herpes and then can never have sex again? Is that how that works?
Oh, shit. Okay. So, I made a decision. So one of the people that I told was an ex-girlfriend that I was on and off with. And she was like, well, fuck, if you got it, I definitely have it. But I say that no one had it because later on, come to find out, she didn't have it. So I want to make sure to throw that in here. So I got back with her, and shortly after we realized, like, this wasn't going to work. I disclosed to the first person I disclosed to. I told her, and then she told me that she knew someone close to her who also had genital herpes, HSV2 actually. So they talked about it, and then she came back and was like, all right, well, we'll just wear condoms. Do you have the medication? Like, how can we make this work? So we ended up just doing it that way. Like, we had a pretty good, like, relationship. I will say, like, sex was not prioritized, but it happened. And we did it in a way that there was, like, minimal contact of our skin to skin, because that's how the virus transmits, from skin to skin contact. So that relationship ended up ending shortly after, not too long after it started, actually. And then I was back out and having a date again. So after that relationship, what do? When you are in a situation like that, right? You run back to what's familiar, what's comfortable. So I went back to an ex-girlfriend, same one that we already just thought that she had it too. So we try the relationship out. It ends up not working out again, as they usually don't. And then I was actually single. So when I was actually single, like this was the first time I had actually been single since my diagnosis. I would say, what was it, 1 year, two, probably 2-3 years into my diagnosis. And so I'm like out, and like I've got friends and I'm in social groups, and in these social groups, like there were women in them who they were clearly interested, but I was just like, my defense mechanism was just being oblivious. I am the king of like dismissing and deflecting shit. If I can't do anything else, I can deflect. So I did a lot of deflecting in my dating life whenever I was in these like social circles, because it was like, damn, what if I tell any of them that I have herpes, this might fuck up my social life, like my friendships, right? And so I just didn't let it go anywhere. We go out, and none of my friends at this point in time knew that I had herpes, but like there would be times where I'd be talking to someone, and we'd be out, and they'd be like, "Oh, dude, you get her number?" I was like, "No." Like that would, I just let the dialogue end where it ended. There were so many times as things like this would happen, and I knew it was because I didn't want to have to tell somebody that I had herpes, and it shouldn't have been that way. Like if I could go back, like I'd have been like, first off, it wouldn't have been a big deal until it got to a certain point of the conversation for me to have told them. But it was just like, the more that I just pushed it down and repressed it into the back of my mind, the more that shit was like shouting in my head. It was like, you ain't gonna fuck because you got herpes. Like that's the kind of thing that's what was going on.
Yeah.
So I was believing that. So I wouldn't let interactions with women get past a certain point. Like, there'd be no follow up. Like there were times where I just fucking like say goodbye to somebody and just clean walk the fuck away. And I would know that they were just like, "You're not gonna ask me for my number?" "No, I'm not. Not happening." And then there were like really fucking close calls where it'd be like we're making out or something, and it's like, "Oh yeah, let's get up out of here." And then there were also times where I just didn't disclose. Like I can think of those instances where I didn't. So after I started the podcast, I had to make some very uncomfortable phone calls or text messages, which was way easier than phone calls were. And just to let people know, like, hey, well, the way that I did it was I just asked. I was like, "Hey, do you have herpes?" And when they all said no, it was like, "Oh, cool. All right, well, here's what's going on. I'm about to start this podcast because I have it. Like, I'm so happy I didn't give it to you, blah, blah, blah." And that was just kind of like the end of it. So I kind of like freed myself up to be able to talk about it openly, and share my experiences from there. So I think you're about to probably ask me about disclosing, unless you have a different question from what I just said.
No, yeah, definitely disclosing. How I have herpes, and now how do I tell people? And is it different telling a friend versus somebody that you potentially want to have sex with?
Yeah, I think that the pressure's way higher when there's more at stake. So for me, I didn't want to tell my friends because of the social circle thing. But eventually, like, I had to tell somebody because they kept telling me, there was a couple, like my friends, there were a couple at the time, and they were always giving me shit about being in love with my ex, the one that I just kept going back to for convenience. And one day I just was like, "You know what? Hey, I'm tired of y'all fucking asking me this." So I was with one of the parties, and I told her, I was like, "The reason that I keep doing this is not because I'm in love with her. Like, it's because I have herpes and I don't want to have to tell anybody new." And so she had a very straight face, except her eyes got big. She went, it was just kind of like that deer in the headlights look. And so when she was like, "Well, doesn't everybody have herpes?" Like that, I don't know why that's like the general response. I think that people try to make us feel better. When we tell good people, they want to let us know that they're not judging, that it's okay, and that we're just not alone. So like, I think that the undercurrent of what she was saying in "doesn't everybody have herpes" was just simply like, hey, I don't see you any differently. Like, you're no different because you have herpes. But it's good that now we know, and that's what it is, so we can stop giving you shit about what we've been giving you shit about. So this was one of the first people I told, and then I told one of my buddies, and the way that I told him, he was like, "Man, I got twins on the way." I was like, "Damn, at least it ain't herpes. I got that shit." He was like, "Damn, okay." And then he goes, what did he say? he told me about one of his friends that also had it, and we ended up getting hooked up and connected, and we had like a short-term relationship going on, but something just felt off about it, and this is something that's like stuck with me, is that I don't want to be chosen by somebody simply because we share an STI diagnosis. I remember asking her, I was like, hey, did you know I had herpes before we connected? And she was like, no. And I was like, that doesn't feel right. So I asked my friend, and he was like, man, fuck yeah, she knew. And so I was like, man, I knew it.
Yeah.
So like, that's been something that I've held on to, like, and it comes in stages. Like, you don't have anything to challenge what your beliefs are initially until you go out and you have experiences in reality, and you can't have those experiences to your fucking self. You have to give yourself something to measure it up against. So for me, it was having to go out, and I started to disclose to people, started with my friends. These weren't necessarily low risk disclosures by any means. Low risk would be, this girl's okay looking, I'm already having sex, or I'm fine masturbating, so I'm just gonna go ahead and just tell her I have herpes to see what she says. That would be low risk. Someone that, perhaps you have like a trusting relationship, but you don't really care if it's going to go anywhere. You're about to move, for instance, and you're not going to be in contact much longer. Telling them, that's low risk. High risk is people that you have to work with, people that you see every day, people who have the ability of telling someone else and then having it get around to where it's not just in the back of your head anymore, but it's people around you are looking at you and judging you. So when the first part of disclosure is really the second part of disclosure is really being aware of who it is that you're telling. The first part is going to be having accepted your diagnosis for what it is. If you are unable to look yourself in the mirror and say, I have herpes, without crying, without getting angry, without having some sort of like a negative expression of emotion, then you're probably not ready to tell anyone yet, and that's okay. But maybe telling someone is going to be the thing that you need to do in order to release that. So it's important to have like a safe space or a support system that you can tap into when you're ready to start talking about this, because it's a very vulnerable thing, and oftentimes for many people it is a traumatic event that, little things could trigger you. Like when you hear a herpes joke, that can be triggering. When you think about sex, when you hear someone talk about sex or their dating life, all of these things can be triggering. And so it's important for you to be able to take care of yourself. When you're ready to tell someone, then it's important for you to be able to tell them in a way that you're going to project what you feel onto them. That's always going to happen. So going into it consciously of, all right, well, I'm knowledgeable, I feel empowered by it, I've accepted it. When you can tell someone, hey, I have herpes, and then give them whatever additional information it is that you want about what happened around it, like what your experience has been, I think that makes for a really well-rounded disclosure. Now, I'm talking about disclosing in a sense for you, but when you're ready to disclose to where it's a shared experience, so like if you want to be intimate with someone, if you're ready to have sex, that's more of a high-risk disclosure, because there's something on the line. Like you're very attached to the outcome. So you want a successful, and I'm using air quotes when I say successful, disclosure, because I don't like that phrase. I think that the success is in initiating the conversation at all about your STI status, about sex in general, about your sexual health. So when you are making the decision of disclosing to someone, I have a podcast episode on something positive for positive people, episode 99, integrated disclosure. It's with the executive director of Sex Positive Portland. At the time, I don't know if she still is, but she has a TED Talk out, and it's called STARS, STARS. And the first S stands for talking about sexual health status, T is for turn-ons, A is for avoids, R is relationship intention, and then the second S is a matter of safety, what it is that you need in order to feel safe. I believe that this conversation, herpes included or excluded, is a conversation that everyone needs to be able to have, because it's negotiating the relationship, whether that, and when I say relationship, I know that people might get like a deep sensation in the pit of their stomach because they're like, oh, the R word. But no, like you and I right now, we're related. We have a relationship. I have a relationship with a stranger who I'm walking down the street with. I have, in my mind, a relationship with strangers, people I don't know that I may never have a reaction to or an interaction with. These are still all relationships. So in the sense of looking at what you want with a person, being able to jump around those STARS, those 5 letters is it's key, because you don't have to open up with STIs if you're not ready to disclose yet. So how about getting to a place where you find out, hey, you know, well, what is it that you want from this relationship? I can communicate with you what I want. I want something casual. If the other person's looking for something long term, y'all aren't going to be compatible. So if you are compatible at that R point, you can skip around. Like, ooh, okay, so our relationship intentions lines up. So what about our turn-ons? Like, you know, what gets you excited? What turns you on? Like, what are you into? Like, do you like eye contact? Do you like gentle touching? Are you into some kinky shit? Do you use sex toys? Like, when you get to talking about all of that and beginning to like build a little bit of connection through your sexuality, you see, okay, so we got the same relationship intention and we're compatible sexually. And then you might talk a little bit about your avoids, things that may trigger you in bed or things that you want to just stay away from. Perhaps there's a certain position that may be uncomfortable for someone or something that they're not comfortable with. So if you're aligned there, bam, you've already talked about your relationship intention. You've talked about what turns you on, what turns you off, and you're compatible here. Now, I think that this is probably the best point to talk about STI status. All right. I have genital HSV2, herpes simplex virus. It's the virus that causes genital herpes outbreaks. I don't have an outbreak now. I get them around however often it is that you get them. I just happen to be someone who doesn't have outbreaks. I've not had one for a very long time. But there's still a possibility that I can pass it on to you. So what that looks like for me is I just have to continue to manage my stress, my nutrition, and work out. And then what it means for you is that if we decide to move forward, I mean, of course, we're going to use protection. We'll use condoms. We'll use lube. Or perhaps, you know, if you're not comfortable with that right now and you need a little bit more time to do your own information seeking and investigation, then, you know, maybe there are other ways we can be with each other. Perhaps like using sex toys or mutual masturbation or doing oral, like whatever it is that feels safe for both people. And then you want to make sure that you ask them about like their testing. When's the last time you've been tested? Do you know about herpes testing? Do you know that that's not on the standard STI panel? If you don't ask for it, they won't test you for it. Did you know that you could still get herpes with a condom? So even if, you know, I know my status, so obviously I know that I need to take these particular precautions. And so judging off of the person's reaction to that, now, if we've got green light, green light, green light with all of the sexual compatibility, and then all of a sudden it's like, ooh, well, I don't see anything, I don't see us being anything serious, then first off, that person was inconsistent in what it was that they said. So you know, after having disclosed your status, that this wasn't the person for you, and you probably saved yourself from some manipulation, some abuse, some being taken advantage of, whatever. But if this person's like, okay, well, here's my response to that, and you want to move to the next level, at this point, now you can start talking about safety. What does it look like to, in terms of being safe, like wearing condoms, how you're going to get back and forth from place to place, like who's going to whose house, are we going to let someone know that we're where we are, and just generally what a person needs for their overall safety. So being able to, you know, manipulate those 5 letters in a way that works best for you and where you are at that point in time, because you can just jump right into it like, hey, listen, I'm just trying to fuck tonight. I got herpes, but I got condoms, I got lube. What's up? And that works for some people. For me, I like to get it out the way early. So my disclosure, because I have the nonprofit and the podcast, it looks a lot different for me than it does a lot of people. But I remember one of my first disclosures since having the podcast. I tried so hard, and it was actually my ex-girlfriend. I tried so hard to get her to ask me what my podcast was about. And so I was like, you know what, I'm ready to tell her. So I'm texting her, and I'm like, yeah, I got some podcast stuff to do tonight. She's like, oh, okay, that's nice. It's like, yeah, some pretty intense podcast stuff. Yeah, like I got to do some interviews, some editing. She's like, oh, okay, well, I'm sure you'll get it done. I was like, fuck, just ask me. She would not ask me what the podcast was about. So I had to go out of my way to tell her, all right, so before you fall madly in love with me, and I kind of remember the overview. I was like, before you fall madly in love with me, I want to give you a choice that wasn't given to me. And I let her know I was diagnosed with genital HSV2, whatever year it was. And what it means for me is that sometimes I might have an outbreak. Like if I feel something coming along, then that makes me more contagious than I am usually. I can still give you herpes, but it's less likely to happen when I don't have an outbreak. So I was just kind of like, how do you feel about that? I understand, some people ain't ready for all of that. And so she texted me back, and she actually sent me this long ass message and was like, me too. So that's another thing that people don't expect. If you're disclosing to someone and they're on top of what their sexual health history is and their status and everything, it's more likely that they're going to at the very least know what their status is or know something about herpes if they're someone who's STI aware or, on top of, being tested, if they're on top of asking partners about this. And, I'm leading with having to disclose myself, unfortunately, because the bulk of the responsibility falls onto us as the people who have this positive diagnosis, when it should be normalized that everyone's having a conversation. Even for me, people are very taken aback by the fact that I initiate this conversation. They're like, you talk about sexual health, you talk about that first. I even told my therapist, I told him after my last relationship, I hooked up with someone. We both got tested. We were both negative. We were like, all right, let's not use condoms. She had Plan B on standby, and so we had a fucking weekend fuck fest. And it was as a result of us having gotten tested, gotten our results back, and communicating about what we were going to do to move forward. And I feel like that is a big missing piece as well of safer sex practices. It's not just, I got tested this time and I'm negative for what I'm negative for. I got tested and I'm negative for what I'm negative for, but I have herpes. And then let's fuck. There are so many more elements of that the STARS talk covers. So that is how people should consider disclosing.
Yeah, I love that, and I cannot wait to blast that all over social media because, like you said, even with an STI or not, using that STARS acronym in any relationship, I think, especially an intimate relationship, is so important. And yeah, coming from that sex ed background and working in this field, when you are dating people and you have these conversations, you're exactly right. You throw people off. They don't expect you to ask them, when is the last time you got tested? Have you ever been tested? Here's this lube. I like sex toys. People don't expect that shit. And I fully agree with you that kind of stuff needs to be more normalized.
Well, and here's another thing too. Even when I have this conversation, even before sex or during making out or during sex even, asking women what they want. I'm heterosexual, cisgendered male, and I have sex with women. And so whenever I ask them, hey, what do you like? Their fucking heads explode. I guess because no one's asked that before. Or even, I guess guys are intimidated by the use of sex toys. Fuck no. I know how to use tools. I've worked with my hands before. Tools are great. Tools help you. They amplify your efficiency.
You're speaking to my soul right now. This is so good.
So, I'm all about it. Yeah, I'm all about the use of tools. So if these are things that are going to support and enhance the experience being had, then why not use them? Especially, if this is something that, I think that maybe women are just not sure how to process that,
Mm-hmm.
or like, oh my God, what does this mean? What? I don't know what to do. And it's something that, like, I think that it helps because it helps me with building more like long-term type of connections with women, because I'm already comfortable with what I'm working with and what I got going on and what I know.
Mm-hmm.
So introducing someone who may have not had the freedom or the supportive partner to support them in their sexual expression, I think that perhaps that's something that just takes a little bit of getting used to. So it's really fun to like watch partners open up over time and
Yeah.
start to get to a point where they're like, all right, I want you to tie me up and just call me this, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right, we're here now, I'm here for it. But it just takes for you to invite that kind of vulnerability, and safety. Like, safety is a really huge thing. Like, people
Mm-hmm.
need to feel safe when they're engaging in something as vulnerable as sex.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier too, being able to look at yourself and have that self-acceptance and say in the mirror, I have herpes, without breaking down any emotions. So for you, that's obviously something that you have conquered very well. What resources are out there for somebody that is on this journey and is looking for help or support or guidance even?
All right, so for me, I didn't have anything at first. 4 years, I had something that told me that this many people have herpes, and then I also had the knowledge of stress management, eat well, and work out,
Mm-hmm.
right? So navigating for 4 years with that, and finally getting fed up. I finally just found that there was a dating site for people with herpes. I got on there and I started to meet people and get introduced into these like underground support groups for people with herpes, and there are also like social groups and dating groups, like whatever it is that you need there. So I kind of like found myself through there, and none of those at that point in time were for me. So I had to fucking create something. Like, I had to make something
Mm-hmm.
that allowed for conversations to be had and experiences to be shared, not in the way of, oh my God, I have herpes, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, fuck everything, I want to kill myself.
Yeah.
I was very, like, I started to just unsubscribe from those kinds of things. There's just a few groups that I'm part of that are social groups because they do really cool shit, and herpes doesn't seem to be an issue for the most part. So I'm still in some of those, but after seeing so much of that, like, what I needed at that point in time was something positive for positive people. I needed to hear from other people in a safe space where I was at that point in time, like being able to anonymously consume this information without having to worry about, being found out or putting myself out there to someone, because I want to hear from somebody who has herpes, but I don't necessarily want to offer up that I have it. So the podcast platform is an amazing resource for that, to be able to just hear people intelligently, confidently talk about their health status and all of the shit that happens around having herpes. So aside from this, Instagram is a great place for herpes support pages. They post a lot of different types of posts. So like, there are things that are specific for women, there are things that are specific for managing outbreaks, there's empowerment pages, there are people who present real information. So some are sex education, that's sex education with an L in the middle. There's Positive Results US, who also sells dental dams. So if anybody needs dental dams, go get you some dental dams. And yeah, there's a variety of pages. Like, once you start to find one, it opens you up to being able to find everything else.
Yeah, and Safe Slut too. I know that you recommended them on another page, and she's actually coming on here in a future podcast to talk about yoni steaming. So I'm super pumped about that. But yeah, you're exactly right. There's so many resources out there, and again, plugging your podcast, something positive for positive people. I was just, of course, touring your website and whatnot before this, and the fact that you made it a nonprofit, and so there are places where people can actually donate to your nonprofit. I would love for you to mention that, because, as I said, this is a topic that I don't get asked about often, but I would be willing to bet that this would be one of my most listened to episodes, because there are so many people out there that are dealing with this, or they know somebody that's dealing with it.
I appreciate that. So if you visit www.spfpp.org, on the homepage, you'll see different options to donate. And I know a lot of people have issues with the stigma of not wanting to have their names associated with a herpes or STI related page, because what if somebody finds out and then they think you have herpes or know you have herpes? So all the accounts are linked to mine. My personal stuff, so it's just like you're paying Courtney Brame for something, and then I just go ahead and transfer it into the something positive for positive people, like bank account and everything. So there's like that middleman. I look like I'm funneling money and shit through different PayPal, Venmo, Patreon accounts. But I'm also on Patreon. If you're someone who wants to support long-term, monthly, monetarily, you can go ahead and go to patreon.com and subscribe that way. Patreon members don't get anything extra. Like, I let y'all know stuff a little bit early. Like, if there's an announcement coming, I offer up, my time if anyone needs to talk or wants to talk. But that's really it. I don't believe that these resources need to be exclusive only to people who are providing some sort of money or resources in exchange for the information. Like, it's very important to me that all of this information be accessible, because you just never know where people are.
Yeah. And on Courtney's website as well, all of the resources and Instagram accounts that he mentioned are on there as well. So we'll make sure to get that linked in the show notes. But this has been amazing. This has been so educational. I know I learned a lot on here. As I was telling you, this is all new to me. This conversation was sparked by a friend disclosing to me that she had herpes, and I'm just grateful to have you on, and I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing to spread this awareness. So thank you again. Any final words of wisdom or any final words before we jump off?
I'm sure more people will hear this who either don't have herpes or don't know what their herpes status is. And so just please be mindful and empathetic to, someone who might disclose to you. There are a lot of people who just simply don't know what their status is. So if you're someone who, at the point of listening to this podcast, are like, no, I don't ever want herpes. Like, nobody better ever tell me that they got herpes. And then you find yourself, however long later, being positive or coming across a partner who discloses to you, it's very important that you just listen, not be judgmental. The stigma is a collective of information that comes from people who don't have herpes and have no fucking idea what it's like to have herpes. Mm-hmm. Sexual health is very interconnected with mental health. So the way that, someone discloses to you their sexual health status and how you respond to that, you're essentially responding to what they perceive as their identity. They're very interconnected. So for you to meet someone with the stink face, or if you want to ghost or anything like that, listen to them first. Hear them out. If you're someone who just knows that you don't want to fuck anybody who has herpes, that's awesome. Thank the person for telling you, because not everyone has the integrity to do so. Not everyone has the confidence. Not everyone has the tools and resource. And not everyone is told that you have to. Even doctors are telling people, hey, you don't have to disclose because it's so common, or just wear a condom. These are the types of things that are being said to people. So when you meet someone who discloses to you, seriously, hear them out and thank them, and don't jump to the conclusions of what stigma has been implanted in your head by the media and all of the other resources of people and places that, again, have no idea what it's like to live with this virus.
Yeah. Thank you. Very well said. And my final note is to get your fucking STI test done, because as Courtney mentioned, this is not on just a regular STI panel. You have to specifically request it. That was a huge takeaway, I think, for a lot of people. So, okay. Until next time, thank you again so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you loved it, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a thing. And if you loved it so fucking much, be sure to leave a 5-star review. I'll see you next week, and until then, keep owning your sexual self.